Sean, that's recorded.
I'll take that as a yes. Okay, welcome everybody to the June 21st, 2022 meeting of the Woods Hole, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket Steamship Authority. I haven't done this in a while, so please bear with me. As we get underway here today, I have a couple of announcements I need to read. I would like to inform everybody that Steve Beatty, or Batty, I'm not sure which, of All Media Productions is making a video and audio recording of today's meeting and public session for Martha's Vineyard Community Television, also known as MVTV. I would also like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communications director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting as well. Is there anybody else making an audio recording of today's meeting? If so, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you are joining by phone, pressing *9 on your keypad. When you are recognized, please state your name for the record.
It's Louisa Hofstadter with the Vineyard Gazette. Good morning.
Hi, Louisa, welcome.
George Brennan, Martha's Vineyard Times. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan, welcome. Anybody else?
That appears to be it.
Pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in line with social distancing guidelines followed during the COVID-19 pandemic, board members are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendances today would be unreasonably difficult. All board members are participating in the meeting by Zoom video conferencing, and all members will be clearly audible to each other. As a result of the members' remote participation in this meeting, any and all votes taken by the members today will be by roll call vote. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the authority's May 26, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion?
I have a small correction to make.
Okay, go ahead.
On page 7 of the minutes, the third paragraph under license amendment for Cape and Islands Transport, the third line, second word, quoting me, it should be substitution, not substation.
Got it.
So if
Okay,
necessary, I would move to amend the minutes as I proposed, and then approve as amended.
Second that.
motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Jeffrey, I.
Jones, aye.
Malkin, aye.
And chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. Port Council's report. Who do we have from the Port Council?
Mr. Cahill is being brought over.
Good
Good
morning,
morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Cahill.
Good morning. I will be brief, I promise. I have 4 things to talk about, and it'll be quick. We met on June 7th. 2 topics we talked about at first was the website update and redesign, which was a good presentation. We then moved into the SQMS update, and finally a presentation on the propulsion study report, which I think you had the same presentation a week or 2 before, which we found to be highly valuable and important. 2 more things is that we do now have a Hyannis Port Council member. His name is Bud Brialt, and he's a wonderful addition to the group. And I think you'll find that to be so. And then finally, for Bob, you and I discussed last week about moving the Port Council meeting on July 5th. And I think I'm getting some feedback from other Port Council members that we would like to do so. So we're suggesting maybe to put out an email for July 12th.
Will do.
All right. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions from the board for the Port Council? Wow, quick and easy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the general manager's report.
All right, so as we begin here, I'll mention who's in the barn. We're at the administration building in the conference room in the barn. So in addition to Sean Driscoll, Terrence Keneally, Mark Rosem, Courtney Olivera, Kelly Conrad, Bill Cloutier, Mark Emerson, Janice Kennefic, and Angela Sampson is in the room with us. All right, so first is a website update. So I'll ask Sean to come up and provide everyone with the latest and greatest.
Morning, everybody. So just a quick update on the progress of the website redesign project. We are currently still in the focus innovation and building and evolving phase, which means that we are testing and deploying things at a rapid pace to start to build up the site. The design team from ADK has continued with working on the user dashboard and profile management designs, several portions of which have gone into development, including desktop and mobile views of the multi-ride cards and eFerry electronic passenger ticketing. And they're continuing design work on many other pages, including schedules, fares, and discounts, parking, and direction pages. The tech team, meanwhile, is working on the implementation of the API gateway, which is the interface between the website and our reservation systems, including working on the future reservations, past reservations, and eFerry tickets. We've been continuing to send updates every other week through the e-news and posting online at steamshipauthority.com/webproject. And I expect at the July board meeting, and if we do move the July Port Council meeting, to have another quarterly update from ADK as to the progress. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you. Sean, what kind of progress and who's involved in working to coordinate information from the vessels and from the terminals to get that information into the website to our travelers in as speedy a process as possible?
So that's a separate internal process that we're doing, Jim. We've been meeting periodically on several communication pathway improvements here, including from the terminals and from the vessels, and how we can speed that up and streamline that. And then that will ease the transition into the website. But that's a separate process that we as senior staff are undertaking concurrently with the development of the new website.
Now, I appreciate it's a separate process, but as I've said before, I'm always worried about garbage in, garbage out. And so we need to make sure we have the best up-to-date stuff as possible that's actually feeding into the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you.
All right, so next, staff would like to request a vote of the board for the proposed 2022 wage and salary increase program for our non-union personnel, which consists of approximately 90 employees. So each year, the management staff seeks an updated market data report on wage and salary for both budget and structure adjustments from Willis Towers Watson, which is a leading global advisory firm for employee compensation and benefits. So based on the recent survey, increase in the market analysis by the firm, the recommendations for this year's wage and salary structure are an overall wage increase of 3.3%. And a salary structure adjustment of 2.2%. So it's the, actually probably should be reversed. The salary structure gets adjusted by 2.2 and then the wages 3.3. The wage and salary increases, if granted, for our non-union personnel are effective July 1st of each year. And that's based on an annual employee performance evaluation that's done. So not everyone gets the same thing. It's an evaluation as to the employee's performance over the past 12 months, factoring in where they are in their grade range. And there's a matrix that we use to determine what percentage increase it would be should this be granted, so approved. So We are asking that the members vote to approve the 2022 non-union performance wage and salary increase program as proposed. And I will point out that this program does not include myself as the general manager. That's a separate process.
Questions from the board? Mr. Jones?
Yeah, has this already been approved by the unions, or we're presenting this to the unions for their approval?
Yeah, this is solely for the non-union group. This is separate from any of the collective bargaining agreements. This is the group that does not have a collective bargaining. So it pertains to terminal managers, agents, supervisory personnel at the parking lots, and staff within this building, by and large.
Mr. Jeffrey?
I have, I guess, a question for Bob and then a general question for the board. This salary increase would also include the executive staff, specifically the treasurer?
It would include everyone with the exception of myself and the non-union group.
Okay. And then I guess as the newest member of the board, I have a question as to, I know that we as the board evaluate the general manager, and that's an agenda topic coming down. Why don't we do that for the treasurer, seeing that the treasurer is carved out in the Enabling Act as an officer kind of reporting to the board, and that we elect the treasurer who need not be a member of the authority? And I don't know if this is the correct place to address this, but I know this is the only venue I have to speak to the members of the board under the public meeting law. So I kind of have a question as to why we haven't thought about separate doing the treasurer evaluation as we do with the chairman, as the general manager.
So typically, the evaluation for the treasurer, the general counsel, has been done by the general manager because of the day-to-day dealings with those individuals on topics. Clearly, if there's anything that the board would like me to include in that evaluation for consideration, I am more than willing to hear from members of the board. The question, those two individuals also have a contract as well. So I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure what the wording in those contracts pertain to, but I'd be surprised if it included I guess the practice has been that it's always been the general manager evaluates them, and I'll be, again, more than happy to, if you have any input that you'd like me to include, that I'd be more than willing to include.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I think it's a good thought, Peter, but really we have little means to evaluate the work. The annual audit is probably the biggest evaluation of what has been done and whether everything is okay. As long as I've been involved, that the board has never taken a position of evaluating that. I'd certainly listen to arguments of why we should, but at this point here, that I'm satisfied that Bob's evaluation would hold the court.
Yeah, I would just add to that as a former treasurer himself, I think Bob is probably most qualified to do that at this point. But yeah, if the board feels to want to go in a different direction, then I'm open to listening to that, but I think we're okay for now.
I just bring this up as since we can't speak outside the public meeting law, trying to understand when we looking at the wording of the Enabling Act, that we as the authority elect the treasurer. And so I just wanted to have a better understanding of that. I would say that perhaps when the treasurer's contract comes due, maybe that would be an appropriate time to just evaluate the continuation of this practice. And I have no feelings one way or the other of how to continue, but I think to do our fiduciary duty, we should consider having a discussion when the contract comes due.
Mr. Malcolm?
Thank you. I agree with Peter that it's something worth discussing and considering. I did have a question on the WTW study for the salary increases. I couldn't find this in the study. What was the universe that they tested in terms of price increases and wage increases? Was it national? Was it regional? If so, what region? I couldn't dig that out. I may have missed it.
Yeah, so I think they use a national average for the study. It's US market. It's not broken down for the region as to what they're seeing. They've also factored in that in light of the labor market, that they are seeing that some firms are actually exceeding these, and whether this is a trend that will continue, or whether that will be something that will be brought back in line with what their expectations are for the market in general.
Well, that was the point of my question, Bob, is that certainly southeastern Massachusetts and certainly the Cape and the islands have perhaps a very different price and wage and salary acceleration or parameters than the country as a national entity. I was just wondering how specific we were in the universe that we examined. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey?
To follow up on Mr. Malcolm's question, Bob, out of the 90 employees, how much attrition have we had in the last year with our non-union positions, as well as the ability or inability to fill those vacancies, and I guess how many vacancies of those non-union personnel positions do we have open at the moment?
Yeah, we've actually, much like we've been experienced with on the vessel side and the other groups as well, we have a workforce that is getting closer to retirement ages. So we have had a number of individuals that have retired over the past year or two. It's not only in the administration building, but it's also on the terminal side, terminal managers, agents, and the like. We actually have a few of them that will be going to plan on retiring here next month or two from the non-union side. It's been a process, much like what we've been going through with the senior staff. We're turning them over. It has been difficult in some regards to fill some of these positions. For instance, the port engineers in particular, I'll point that out, that the HMS study had come back with a recommendation of that we should be having 5 of them. No sooner do we get one and something happens and we lose one. It's a competitive market there that we're finding. We do have a headhunter that's assisting us in that regard. So we do have some data in terms of what the market there is for those type of positions, but it's in general. I know that we have the grant administrator position that the board agreed to create, and we're concerned that the lack of applicants for that position, which we felt would be a sought after position, and just don't know whether it's in this region or not. So we intend to work trying to reach out to the FTA and MassDOT to see if they have any suggestions on where we might be able to find good candidates for that position. And the COO position, at this point, we've gotten a handful or two of applicants for the position, but I would have thought that position, not to say that the applicants that we have aren't qualified or may end up being the candidates, but I would have thought that position would have drawn more interest in it than it has at this point. So.
Mr. Jeffrey?
And I guess, Bob, to follow up, as long with the grants administrator position, have you looked at, especially for those type of positions, whether a virtual workplace would be appropriate in order to kind of expand the potential pool of applicants? I don't necessarily, obviously a COO needs to be where the steamship is, but I don't necessarily think a grants administrator necessarily needs to be in the Cape and Islands to do the job, as long as they're able to travel and leverage technology.
Yeah, that might be, I'm not sure that offhand, the posting that we had for that position, whether we had identified as being one that would be required to be coming into the office or not. So, but that's a good point that we could look at that as well.
Any additional
Obviously,
questions?
in that particular regard, on the grants administrator, it's more than a grant writer as well. So it's someone that will need to be doing a lot of research in terms of programs that are out there, and what opportunities we have, and also working with staff to identify areas that these are things that we anticipate that we need to be working on, and what grant opportunities are there to lessen the need for any rate adjustments to pay for it. So,
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I just following along with the general conversation, when we did the study and the consultant came back and absolutely loaded us up with high-level employees, supposed to be, if I recall, something like one engineer for 2 vessels and assistant engineer or whatever. And I'm just wondering, I don't know how many positions we added, which meant that, before we were getting by with much less. And I don't know if this is, overstaffed or understaffed, or where the happy medium is. I think probably to fulfill the study, which we're trying to do, perhaps that would be the test, but I think we're really pretty high in upper management. Question, do you feel that's true or false?
well, I think one, as the study pointed out, the fact that we only had a port engineer and an assistant port engineer with 10 vessels, they were only able to to be addressing problems as opposed to be planning. And the fact that as we've getting more people, we do have a project planner as well, and then with Mark Amundson leading that group as well. The tide has changed, and we're being more proactive in terms of identifying issues, getting them taken care of during repair periods or dry docks. So I do see the value of it. Ideally, it's so critical that our vessels are operating. As you know, we miss a trip and it's it's a hardship for our customers, but it's also, we have limited space at the terminals to be able to stage vehicles and passengers as well. So I think that aspect of it is working out. Again, we haven't quite gotten to that full complement of port engineers at this point because of the market, in part because of what the market is out there. But I do see the value to that. I think these are all things that when the HMS study was, the recommendations from it, and when we had those workshops, we had identified that there is a cost to all these things that they were recommending, and at this point, some, if not all of it, has already been built into the budget.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take a pulse, Bob. That's all.
Do we have a motion on this?
I would move Second,
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, by roll call?
Jeffrey, I.
Jones, aye.
Malcolm, I.
And Randy, aye. That's approved.
Thank you. Next item, on Tuesday, May 31st, we received a petition relative to the proposed 2023 summer and fall operating schedules. The petition was signed by 160 individuals and states in part that we object to the SSA scheduling of the 5:30 a.m. early morning freight from Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard and its multiple negative public health impacts on Falmouth and Woods Hole residents caused by pre-dawn noise, as well as the ever-increasing threat of public safety resulting from increased freight traffic over Falmouth roads leading to and from Woods Hole. So the Authorities Enabling Act provides that if the authority receives a petition within 30 days of the posting and advertising of in newspapers and general circulation in Falmouth, Barnstable, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and New Bedford of its proposed schedule changes, which have to take place at least 60 days prior to the effective date, that's signed by not less than 50 people who are residents of any of the communities requesting a public hearing, that the authority shall conduct a public hearing within 14 days of receiving the petition. So we did so. Just such a hearing was held on Wednesday, June 8th, in order to hear testimony. The authority will also consider written testimony that has been or will be submitted regarding the proposed schedule changes. But we ask that any written testimony be submitted as soon as possible to ensure that it's timely considered. The written testimony can be emailed to schedules@steamshipauthority.com. Staff, upon considering all testimony, will be preparing a report for the members to deliberate regarding the proposed 2023 summer and fall operating schedules. And at this point, we probably, I think probably August will probably be the most likely date for that report. There's a lot to go through and consider. Just an update to let you know, let everyone know why, where we're at on the 2023 operating schedules. I will point out that there was no comments received regarding the Nantucket schedule for 2023. So we may come back and seeking approval of that just to get that out of the, to get that set up so that way we have that portion of it done.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot and debating whether I keep my mouth shut and not get in trouble or what. I mean, this is a repetitive request. I think which is their right. I think the scope of the petition goes beyond what is just the service, such as trying to be like the town of Barnstable and the fact of electric ferries and things like that. There's no mandate that we buy electric ferries. We buy electric ferries because it's the right thing to do, and they're ungodly costly, and it's going to take years to switch the fleet over. But having been on this, so long, and the uprising in Woods Hole is extremely painful to all of us. In the town of Barnstable, when the Steamship Authority came in, we did not welcome the Steamship Authority with open arms. But it took a whole series of meetings and agreements and things like that to get to where we are today. But I'll say this, that when you have a 10% vote, if you're going to accomplish something, you accomplish through diplomacy. You cannot continually, launch cannons and things like that, and threats and things that are happening today. That just drives people the absolute opposite way. But one of the things that I did when I first got on the town council, they immediately put me on to the steamship things because I was chairman of the Waterways Committee for a dozen years and was very active before the Gas Commission and things like that, and kind of outspoken about the impacts to Hyannis Harbor and how, now we're having ships into a small boat harbor. And the infrastructure we had and all of this stuff that in some ways is the same with Woods Hole, except for Woods Hole's been a port before anybody living today was alive. And but one of the things that I did the first, after this, they appointed me at the very first meeting of the council and to be a liaison to the Steamship Authority. And the very first thing I did the next morning was call up Nantucket because we were having a lot of problems with Nantucket wasn't necessarily interested in us getting a vote and all this other stuff. And I called up Tristan Israel. I didn't know at the time and met with him and became friends to this day. I called Falmouth and didn't have a great reception. A former representative, then selectman, late to a meeting, came in and flexed his muscles and left, and we kindly said thank you for the meeting. But what did come of all this is our relationship with the various towns and things, and especially on Nantucket. We started calling each other by our first names. We became friends. We got together at Mass Municipal Association and talked. And the waters are smooth. And they're smooth because you have people that can sit down and talk. Right now in the town of Barnstable, in Nantucket, the waters are smooth and have been for quite some time and will probably remain that way. But, having received an email into the town of Barnstable last year and a question to the authority about our enabling act and the terms and conditions, and it was spelled out quite frankly that that we were not in utter trust on that. And then another one came through, copying myself and the entire, anybody they could in the town of Barnstable. And then the next year, a broader one, emailing legislatures and everything, trying to just raise up confusion as far as I'm concerned. That hardly endears me to want to sit down and talk with such a person, but I'm not a vindictive person, and I never had, and I've been in politics since the 1970s. And that means I'm getting older. So in any event, I would just put this out, and maybe Peter, you in talking to Falmouth and stuff, that that our problem with the 9:30 or the 5:30 vote is the fact that the vineyard and the businesses of the vineyards depend on this. And it's a livelihood, and there's all sorts of other reasons why we continue to do it. The vineyard has a 5:30 vote. The town of Barnstable has a 5:30 vote, and now Woods Hole does not want a 5:30 vote. Don't necessarily blame them for that. But I would suggest that perhaps the town fathers of Falmouth meet with the county commissioners or the individual townships on the vineyard in a very small working group, and keep it simple, go out to lunch somewhere or something and sit down and diplomatically try to resolve some of these issues. I don't know if they're resolvable. And if they're not resolvable, then you have to just say, this is what it's gonna be. And, you know, I'm not gonna get ulcers over it. A good friend of mine who was continually, you know, barking about the steamship authority. I grew up with a guy, I like him, he's friends and stuff, but he couldn't go by me without taking a slap shot. And I said to him the last time I saw him, and I said, geez, I haven't heard from you in a long time. And he said, well, he said, I finally decided that the steamship authority is here to stay. They're gonna run their route, they're gonna come in, they're gonna come back, they're big ships. You know, I don't like them here. But across the pond, we have another ferry company that carts more boat passengers than we do to Nantucket. And they have the same problems we do, but theirs never gets the press. Ours gets full press, and no matter what we do. So I don't know if there's any way of sitting down and as gentlemen, you know, and try to negotiate something. And if it can't be done, so be it. Let's just acknowledge it and go on with our life. But this is crazy. I mean, you know, it's 6 o'clock this morning. I get an email from the SMART group. I was halfway across the Atlantic with 100-year-old veterans, you know, bringing them back to Normandy. And I get a Wi-Fi from the SMART group. I didn't open it, by the way. But I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of it. I don't know if we can get a resolve or not. It's almost a plea. You know, and if we can't get together, I don't know how you do it. I mean, the person that fills my shoes when I'm out will have to deal with it. But it's just a thought. I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one, but I'm just tired of this this constant battle. So, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I certainly, from Nantucket's perspective, appreciate the relationship that we have with Barnstable, and I thank you for that. Mr. Jeffrey.
I feel, and thank you, Mr. Jones, for saying that. Obviously, I feel a need to respond. I think, first and foremost, I fully agree with you, Mr. Jones, that Woods Hole has been a working industrial port for centuries. And long before the summer homes were here. And it's a vital industry to the town of Falmouth. I think, you know, the Steamship Authority provides a great many jobs to not only the Cape and Islands, but specifically the town of Falmouth, and some very important, you know, middle-class year-round jobs. And I see a great value in the steamship and its economic impact on the town of Falmouth, not only as the lifeline to the islands, but as a substantial employer. However, I do think that there's a great amount of frustration on, especially the village of Woods Hole, and I think the Vineyarders feel this as well, as both communities are kind of exploding in terms of population and the type of I hate to use the term summer people, but I live on Cape and Island, so I can say that. Their impact seasonally and their demands on businesses. I know they're vital to the businesses on both the Cape and Islands and why most of us can live here. But I think that a large part of the frustration of Woods Hole is that they get the opportunity to voice their concerns, but then it seems that the steamship isn't responding. Now, some of the things they're asking for, I think actually are a matter of state enforcement. I do think that I think it would behoove us as the authority to invite, as I guess the SMART group has asked, the commercial truck enforcement group from the state police to come in and monitor the trucks. I think they're, you know, that's not something that the authority has the ability to kind of police the trucks that are coming onto our ferries. They could be overweight or not meeting emission standards. And I think that's one of the great concerns and disruptions. And I think, that conflates with the 5:30 a.m. ferry. Would there still be people complaining if the 5:30 a.m. ferry was the 6:15 a.m. ferry? I think perhaps, but I think then maybe we would address something that way. I'm not necessarily saying that I have no illusions that I think the 5:30 a.m. freight ferry will pass again this year. I know that my appointing authority has repeatedly asked not to have that ferry occur. So I will most likely vote with the way my appointment authority has asked me to do. But I do think I'm balancing my fiduciary duty to the board and the authority, as well as representing the port town I'm in. I mean, that I'm trying to balance that. And I do think there are actions this board could take to at least demonstrate to the village of Woods Hole that we're listening to their concerns, albeit maybe not getting rid of the 5:30 a.m. ferry, but then asking the state police to enforce the emission standards, the gross weight tonnage. That's not something we should ask the authority to do. We're in terms of who we carry freight for, but we very well could ask the state police truck enforcement group to come in. I do think we should work a little bit more, probably in all the port towns, to look at how can we mitigate the traffic or environmental concerns, including we have this great opportunity now with redesigning the Woods Hole terminal. How can we mitigate the traffic noise from the staging lot in the mornings or throughout the day and its environmental impact? And I applaud the authority as we move to our electric buses to minimize the environmental and noise impacts given what we run. So I think it's difficult. I don't think necessarily, though, that I think it's our job to hear through the noise of frustration as to what concerns there are that we have the ability to address or to whom to refer those to. And I think a great many of the concerns actually could be better addressed through the state police or the state legislature. And I don't want to spend too much time, but I in terms of our Enabling Act, and when we talk about the electrification of ferries, I agree with you as the way the Enabling Act is written and our bond authority is such, and that we are asking for our passengers and freight carriers to bear not only the operating costs of the steamship, but ultimately the infrastructure costs of the steamship. That seems insanity and a very outdated Enabling Act. And perhaps we could get more interest in looking at being more like the Washington State ferry system, where at least we could get, if not our capital expenses subsidized. And I think that would go a long way to addressing concerns of all the port communities. Because there's this tension of having to represent, I know with the island representatives, representing the rate bearers of the steamship and meeting that fiduciary duty. So in response, I think we need to hear through the noise. I think the frustration then, I married into an old Yankee Cape Cod family. I think everyone here understands that grievances become generational amongst Yankees. And sometimes the reason for those grievances may have been lost in historical fact. But nevertheless, there's a message to be heard. And I think there are some strategies that we could find at least to show that we're aware of their concerns and that we're addressing them, even if it isn't changing the ferry schedule as it is, but looking at seeking outside enforcement from the truck enforcement group, from the state police, looking to do better traffic mitigation and noise mitigation studies in terms of planning our roads and working with the state roads and so forth. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Great comments. We'll go to Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you. Following on from Bob Jones, if I may call you Peter, Mr. Jeffries.
Absolutely.
I also appreciate your, I think, wise and judicious and thoughtful comments. We do represent different communities and we're elected to do so. And I understand that. And I listened to Select Chairman Brown from Falmouth in the public hearing. I listened to the comments that were made. And you're right, things get conflated, things get complex, things do get generational. And over here, I have towns, select boards, businesses, and a hospital that advocate for the continuation of the 530 vote. I would also point out to you two things. I don't know if you're aware of them. Bob can send to you an 8-page report that we put together that I had asked that we look at noise and mitigation activities for the people in Woods Hole. There are lots of steps that have been done. We aren't an enforcement agency, but we've taken a lot of proactive steps. To some extent, for some people, I think the Steamship Authority is found to be doing nothing if they're not getting 100% of the things that they want. You know, oftentimes I hear people tell me, I'm not listening to them, when basically it is, I'm not giving them the answer they're looking for. So in short, I would, although we have had Mass DOT and we have had Falmouth Police look at noise and traffic, and the reports have said that the noise and the traffic was minimal in the past, I would be supportive of requesting the enforcement agencies to relook at that. I'd be happy to support that. Additionally, I have talked with Bob, for your information, since we can't meet other than in public meeting, about is it possible through increased, perhaps, boat capacity to eliminate the 530 boat by having more vehicles on a 6 o'clock boat. Doing that, I think, would satisfy our business demands and our traffic concerns over here. One of the issues, two issues that Bob raised were one, we might be talking bigger freight boats and the scheduling issues, and single-ended big freight boats would have backup alarms going off at 6 or 6:15 in the morning, which would create more noise, albeit 45 minutes later. So I'm happy to look at that. If it means increased capacity at 6 o'clock and we can figure that out, that'd be fine. But in the interim, as you have wisely pointed out, my electors and their communities that depend on that vote. Happy to try and find another way to work with you. But again, I do think, and we saw this in the public hearing, which was supposed to be, as Mr. Jones pointed out, about the 530 vote, but wound up with a lot of comments on a lot of things that have to do with traffic volumes that are increased across the Cape and the islands, that are increased across, you know, all of the vacation lands and year-round lands now. And it impacts everybody. And we do have, as you pointed out so rightly, you have a deep water port in Woods Hole that accommodates deep water commercial activities, has for centuries. And we have attempted and are trying to try something out of Woods Hole for, New Bedford for traffic. On one hand, we have New Bedford saying they're not interested in Falmouth's traffic issue. And on the other hand, we have people in Woods Hole who are saying our RFP is too constraining and there are too many conditions. But we are trying to address these issues, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malkin. Anything further on this? Mr. Jones?
Yeah. I want to just emphasize the fact of having the select people get together themselves with a small group and discuss this. The town of Barnstable, when we were negotiating, trying to mend the bridges in Nantucket, and basically we met with the council. We had 13 people in the council. I chaired the committee and had a couple of other people, and the people from Nantucket, sent representatives, so it was a small group to work together. The first meeting, I think I said before, that we offered them, lobster rolls and chowder, and we did our best job. And the first meeting was really rocky, but from there on, things smoothed out, and it was wonderful. But some of the things we're talking about, the state police, I don't believe it's our job to get the state police on a state road. It's the town should take that initiative. And if I don't have any problem, trying to do that, but I really think that the town and the selectmen, they're running the town, and they really should clamp down on that. And if they say this is only going to be X, speed limits and whatever it is, that's a town law, a town bylaw. Anyways, I'm not going to, and just so you will all know that I'm a 13th generation Cape Codder, so you're getting what you get from what I have of 13 generations.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Davis.
May
Yeah,
not be pretty old.
I hate to interrupt this conversation, but later, one of the next items on the agenda is the audit review with RSM US. And they have a very limited window here. So whether we could take them out of order, and if we have to come back to this subject afterwards, but knowing that they have this limited window, if the board would so indulge us to bring them over.
You are so indulged.
Okay, so it's Dan Bonnet and Valerie Colomon, the partners with RSM, and Mark and Courtney and Kelly are here as well. So bring them over. Hold on. I'm having a little difficulty bringing them over. Valerie and Dan, if you're here, you have to accept the being moved to a panelist. I'm coming up an error code here. Hold on. There you come.
Good morning, this is Valerie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we don't have the rights to share the presentation or anything. Let's see. Let's see now.
Yeah, we're having some problems getting you
Okay,
as a panelist, so hold on 1 second.
sure.
Dan, can you hear us as well? We have the present, we have that from, that we can put up. Seems that we're having an issue promoting you to panelists, but we can see your name, we can't see you.
You can see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's Valerie.
There's Val.
Hello, good morning.
It may take a minute for you, Dan. So,
Hello again, Valerie.
as a panelist, Valerie, Valerie, as a panelist, can you now do share the presentation, or do you still need us to do it?
I can share. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
There we go.
Wonderful. I want to make sure Dan is good as well.
Yeah, I can see it, and I think you can hear me, right?
We can hear you,
Correct.
but we can't see
Yeah.
you, just to let you know. Yeah.
Probably better if you don't see me. So,
Okay.
so let's page down, Val.
Yes.
So the purpose of us meeting with you here today is to share with you the results of the audit of the December 31st, 2021 financial statements, as we are required to do under the professional standards. Next page, Val.
Here you
So
go.
there's this executive summary on this page, which really highlights the key topics for today. So the audit is complete. The authority issued the financial statements on May 9th of 2022. And we issued an unmodified opinion on both the business type activities and the fiduciary activities, which is in English means that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. As part of the audit process, we do audit every account, but there are places that we're going to spend more time just because of the inherent risk that may exist in an account based on its nature, based on past experience of the authority, or in one particular case, the ransomware incident which took place during 2021. That was actually something that we were required under the firm standards to do a record of consultation and involve our national office in assessing the risk and potential exposure and potential impact on the financial statement balances. So we actually did spend quite a bit of time dealing with that. And I will say that we probably could have issued before the end of April if we didn't get tied up in having to deal with sorting through this record of consultation with national office. So I will use that as a point to say, you know, I know we have had some delays dating back 2 or 3 years related to the turnover and things that had happened in the office. When we talked last year, we shared with you that we felt like things were really coming together, that the team had really improved over the issues that we had run through in that probably that 2-year period. And this year, I would say it's one of the smoothest audits that we've had in my years in serving the authority. So again, I want to make sure that it's clear that the issuance date in May had nothing to do with management. It was all based on consultation requirements that we had internally. The other issues here, in terms of the areas of audit focus, are consistent with what they have been in prior years: self-insured health obligations, the valuation of the pensions, compliance with debt covenants, and so forth. We were required this past year to perform an audit in accordance with the Uniform Grant Guidance because of the federal transit cluster. Those funds, I think, were, I'm going to screw this up, I want to say around $850,000, something in that vicinity, which triggered the requirement for the grant audit. During the audit process, we did identify some past adjustments, which Valerie will talk about in a little bit more detail shortly. Having said that, we did not identify any findings relative to compliance around the expenditure of the federal dollars, no significant deficiencies in internal controls, no material weaknesses in internal controls. This slide here goes through the required communications. And just to share with you, the audit was performed in accordance with both general accepted auditing standards, but also generally accepted government auditing standards. The additional standards were required because you received and expended federal dollars, which requires greater accountability for you as an organization, but also us as the auditors, requires additional specialized training, additional testing, additional documentation. Our responsibilities under those standards were spelled out in detail in the arrangement letter that was dated back in January of 2022. Having said that, the audit does not relieve management or those charged with governance of their responsibilities, which are also described in that letter. Back in February, we issued a document which outlined our originally intended scope for the audit. That was based on our
We lost Dan.
Dan, you're muted.
All right, I just get bounced in as a panelist. Can everybody hear me now?
Oh, Dan's back. Welcome back, Dan.
Okay, good. Now I can't read the slide. Oh, here we go. That presentation that we did back in February laid out our original assessment of the audit scope. There were no changes to that scope, which is to say we didn't find anything during the audit process that we didn't anticipate going in. Preferability of accounting policies and practices. There are circumstances under GAAP where management has different options to comply with GAAP. This standard language says, in such circumstances, management has selected the preferable accounting practice. Fact of the matter is, there really are no significant opportunities for management to have multiple interpretations of GAAP with the authority. The only place would be in the reporting of fixed assets. There is an option to report infrastructure, either at historical depreciated cost or using a modified approach where you keep it at its original cost and you assess annually for impairment. That was a decision that would have been made back in the early 2000s. And management chose to do historical depreciated cost, which is what the vast majority of governments elected. In the current year, there was one accounting standard that was adopted, GASB 93, which really all it does is change the name of the formal name of the annual comprehensive financial report. So that actually had no impact on the authority because they do not issue an ACFR version of the report. We didn't identify any significant accounting policies that related to controversial or emerging issues. And we really didn't identify any significant or unusual transactions other than the ransomware event. There are certain numbers in the financial statements that are subject to management's estimate, which means they have the ability to effectively manipulate those numbers based on assumptions and so forth that are applied to calculations. And there's two significant estimates in these financial statements, or actually three. One is the valuation of pension and other OPEB liabilities. For that, management employs an external third-party actuary to do that analysis for them. We have our own actuary take a look at the work that's done by the authority's actuary, because actuaries speak a different language than the rest of the planet. So, but based on our actuary's analysis of your actuary's work, we didn't identify any issues or concerns. The other is capital assets. By their very nature, you buy an asset and you take a portion of that and expense it over the life of the asset to properly reflect the usage in your financial statements. So we've taken a look at management's estimated useful lives and found them to be reasonable and consistent with other similar governmental organizations. And the other slide here, the next slide, actually, this is where I pass over to Valerie, sorry.
Absolutely. So really here, what we're just outlining is there are certain components of the financial statements that we deem unaudited. Even though it's not officially part of our opinion, there is still some procedures that we need to do, such as read the information for consistency and see if the content is still relevant to the financials as a whole. So what we've done is outline the areas that are deemed unaudited and how we outlined and performed these additional procedures. So you'll see it with the management discussion and analysis, certain schedules that report additional information relating to the pension and OPEB, and then the notes to those required supplemental information. So we just wanted to point that out for your review. And we did not identify any inconsistencies within those areas to the financials as a whole. The audit adjustments. So we did have a proposed audit adjustment as well as some uncorrected or past adjustments that we wanted to bring to your attention. The first one looks a little odd since there are no numbers to sort of formulate. But basically, this is a reclass entry that was proposed as it relates to the equity portion of the financials. So within the authority's financials, equity is broken down into three components. We just had to reclass about $4 million from one component to another. So again, it's a bunch of zeros, as you see. It's just a reclass from one bucket to the next. But we wanted to let you know that that did transpire this year. The next are components that we deem passable. So they are not to any level of material substance that management has to go ahead and book this in the current year. However, they do rise to a certain threshold that we just bring this to your attention. Nothing here is misleading to the financials by not incorporating it in the right year or anything of that nature. So to start off with, you keep track of these types of uncorrected misstatements. So we really kind of reverse the beginning sides of things as it relates to anything that we passed on in prior years. And then we start with the components of this year. So as you can see, the first two are for about 203,000 as it relates to bond issuance premiums. So we identified this amortization or over amortization, and instead we just said, let's fix it in the current year. So we do pass on having to fix it in prior year. And because you bring it in the current year where it doesn't really reflect what transpired in the current year, you also pass on having that effect in the current year. Additionally, there were some accruals that management brought to our attention afterwards that we just said, based on the dollar value, you don't need to necessarily book it, but we'll just keep track of it. And that is the additional accrual for increasing in parking and bus driver wages. And then again, the last part of it is, since we did a reclass of the components of net position in the prior slide, we took a look at last year's just to ensure that we didn't have any issues, and we saw something again that was deemed passable, and we added it to our schedule. Again, nothing here rises to any level of concern. It's just a rolling track of certain transactions that you can kind of fix along the way and not necessarily have to book a true audit adjustment.
Yeah, and I think the important takeaway relative to this slide, Val, if you want to just pop back.
Yes.
Yeah, so the important takeaway here is, these two entries, the second and third entry, it's really something that it washes itself out so that at December 31st, 2021, everything is correct. Everything is correct. Realistically, it was 200,000 was recorded in the wrong year, but our conclusion and management's conclusion is that nobody was going to come to a different thought about the organization if this were restated in the prior year or overstated in the current year. So nothing of any real concern there. And this 162 was actually a subsequent event based on the settlement of negotiation for a union contract. And we took a look and said, well, if you know you have a payment that's due based on the settlement, those funds were really earned. That money was really earned during 2021. So it technically should have been recorded in 2021. The fact that it ends up being recorded in 2022, again, no concerns that anybody's going to come to a different conclusion about the financial health of the authority.
Perfect. And one more thing to add, the authority technically has what we deem opinion units. They have their business type, which is what we went through here. And the next slide is their fiduciary fund. So through the adoption of GASB 84 and prior year, they have to kind of showcase their OPEB and pension as it relates to fiduciary activities. So this is a new fund that we had in last year, and there was one pass adjustment as it relates to contributions due after 12/31/2021. And again, the dollar amount is nothing to be concerned of. It was small enough that we can just pass it and correct it in the current year. As we noted earlier, we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control over the financial reporting process. As we noted, we had some observations for improvements, but nothing to the rise of a level of a significant deficiency or material weakness. There were no significant issues arising from the audit, that are discussed subsequent or correspondence with management. So basically, we had no issues discussing anything with management. There were no disagreements with management. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing the audit. And we were not made aware of any sort of consultations management had with other sort of auditors to kind of give them a different opinion per se. Nothing contentious or anything of that matter to report to the committee overall.
Yeah,
and within, yeah.
So I guess the one thing that I would highlight just to bring to your attention, the financial statement opinion this year, if you take a look at it and compare it to prior year, it looks dramatically different. It's now actually 3 pages instead of historically 2. And just for your information, this was a change in the professional auditing standards where they have modified the template for a financial statement opinion or an auditor's opinion. At the end of the day, it just provides greater transparency to the users as to what is included in an opinion in terms of our responsibilities as the auditor and management's responsibilities over the financial statements, and specifically addresses matters relative to going concern, which have never been specifically addressed in the opinion in the past, unless there was a going concern problem. So I just wanted to make sure that if you looked at this opinion, you weren't surprised to see something dramatically different than what you're used to. So.
And really, to just round up the package, we just include any sort of communications with management in our firm. So that will be part of the whole package as a whole. So at the end of the audit, there are certain representation letters that management attests to, and we have that to present as well. And again, no internal control matters to report. I'm going to stop.
With that, we'll turn back to the committee for any questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns that you might have.
Thank you, RSM. You guys are awesome. Any questions or concerns or comments from the board? Mr. Malkin.
Thank you. Thank you, RSM, and also thank you, management. I know in the past there's been fan mail addressed to the Steamship Authority for being late with the financials. And it was heartening to hear that in this case, to the extent there was a delay, it was not management issues, it was internal review issues on a national level for consultation was required. So again, thank you, RSM, and thank you, management, for timely preparation and presentation of results.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Hearing none. Thank you, RSM.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Valerie. I wish you had told me before I wrote Mark's review. So I think Mark would comment that I think the staff working with Dan and Valerie, Courtney and Kelly and the rest of the accounting team, all the credit goes to them and Mark for getting you everything. So.
Both teams on both sides worked real hard to get this done as quickly as possible. So I want to thank everyone on both sides.
Okay. Before you sneak off, Mr. Rosen, why don't you stay there and we'll listen to your report.
And hard copies of the annual report are being sent.
Yeah, this is something.
Hey, Mr. Rosen, you have the floor.
Okay. John will post the business summary for the month of April. Okay, so we got on the Vineyard route, we got passengers carried. We're up 11,000 passengers, or about 7.8%. On the Nantucket route, we're up about 7,500 passengers, or 22.3%. Both routes combined, we're up just under 19,000 passengers, or 10.5%. Year to date, total passengers are up 45,000 or 9.3%. Here's a graph showing the month-by-month comparison of 21 versus 2022 for the passengers. For passenger vehicles, less than 20 feet, from April 2022 compared to 2021. On the Vineyard route, we saw a decrease of just under 1,600 vehicles, or 3.9%. We see standard fare automobiles down just under 2,200 vehicles, while the excursion vehicles were up 692. On the Nantucket route, we're down 34 cars, or 0.5%. The standard fares are down, similar to the Vineyard route, and the excursion fares are up. Both routes combined for the month of April, we're down about 1,600 passenger vehicles, or 3.4%. Year to date, we're down 1,200 cars at 0.8%, with the Vineyard Route down 1,600 vehicles, and the Nantucket Run up just under 400 vehicles. Here's a graph showing the month-to-month comparisons. Freight vehicles on the Vineyard Route, we're up 14 vehicles. One-ways are 0.3%. On the Nantucket Route, we're down 17 vehicles or 0.5%, and both routes combined are virtually flat or down 3 vehicles. Year to date, we're up 443 vehicles in both routes combined, with the Vineyard Route up 177 and the Nantucket Run up 266. Cars parked on the Vineyard Route, we're up 1,063 cars parked or 17.5%. Nantucket was up 42 vehicles or 2.1%. In both routes combined, we're up 1,105 cars parked or 13.8%. Both routes combined year to date are up just over 2,700 vehicles or 15.4%. And this is mirroring pretty close to the passengers, a little bit higher though. Graph. Okay, trip summary. We have for the month, 0 trips in April for mechanical on the Vineyard Route were canceled, 10 for weather and 7 for traffic demands. Year-to-date total through April, we had 15 trips canceled for mechanical, 107 for weather, and 93 for traffic. On the Nantucket Route, for the month of April, we had 8 trips canceled for mechanical, 28 for weather, and none for traffic. In year-to-date on the Nantucket Route, 8 trips for mechanical, 69 for weather, and 36 for traffic concerns were canceled. Financial snapshot, operating revenue of $9,237,000 was higher than budget by about $48,000. Other income of $83,983 was higher than budget by $21,546. Operating expenses of $9,271,000 was lower than budget by $36,000. And net operating loss of $92,000 was lower than budget by $110,000. Year to date, we have a net operating loss of $11,472,000, which is lower than budget by about $727,000. Here's a graph showing the chart showing each revenue category. So for the month of April, with the automobiles being down, obviously the revenue's down by $318,000. We have passenger revenue up about $250,000, and putting all the categories together for the month, we're up just under $70,000 at 0.8%. Here's a graph by month and year to date showing each bucket of the revenue categories and how what portion of the overall revenue they contribute to. Operating expenses, total operating expenses for the month were down just over $36,000, with the maintenance expense up $394,000, which is the timing issue. If you look at year to date, we're up $141,000 year to date. So it's just some catch-up entries from work that we originally scheduled earlier in the budget. Fuel expense for the month of April was down about $70,000. And overall, we're down on fuel for the year. And I'll go over the fuel right after this about where we stand and what projections we're having for the rest of the year. I know that's a concern in everyone's mind right now. So overall, total operating expenses are down $41,000 for the month, and year to date, we're under budget by 1.8% or $703,000. Here's a graph showing the month-by-month comparison, year-to-date comparison, and the monthly comparison of where the operating expenses fall. Passenger carries for the month of May. Since we're in June now, we have total passengers for both routes combined up just under 17,000 or 6.8%. Year to date, we're up just under 62,000 or 8.5%. For the month of May, we had total vehicles on the Nantucket route down just over 1,100 vehicles. And on the Nantucket route, we're down just over 310 vehicles. And so, speaking of fuel, so for for the month of April, we originally budgeted $2.49, and it came in at $2.35. Year to date, we've budgeted $2.13. We're coming in at $2.09, and that's in part because of our hedge program. So we have hedges we buy, and so basically we take what we pay at for the delivery, add in the cost of buying the hedges, and then any proceeds we get back, we deduct out of our fuel cost. So looking at the month of May, we're going to be seeing an increase on our fuel cost because the beginning of the month of May, the expenses were significantly higher, the cost per gallon, as compared to the end of May, when the contracts get executed and filled for the options. So at the end of the day, we're looking at through May, we're going to be up over budget by about $100,000 through May. Concerning what's going on, that's we'll take it.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Rosen? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Procurement.
All right. First item, I'd like to request a vote of the board to authorize the general manager to dispose of surplus property in accordance with the terms and conditions of the authority's procurement policy. The authority has accumulated some surplus property at its vehicle maintenance garage and warehouse in Falmouth. The equipment is no longer of use to the authority, must be disposed of in accordance with the procurement policy. The procurement policy allows the authority to dispose of it through a competitive sealed bid, public auction, or established markets. Procurement office has occasionally used online auction sites like publicsurplus.com to dispose of equipment, which has no longer any use for the authority. We've identified 61 items for disposal. They include 4 of our shuttle buses that have mechanical issues that warrant repairs, but the expected cost of those repairs exceeds the fair market value of them. So therefore, we're recommending disposal. We have a number of other older vehicles and related equipment such as tow motors, luggage carts, that likewise have been deemed to be of little or no salvage value. So the staff is recommending that the members vote to authorize the general manager to arrange for the disposal of the surplus property detailed within the staff summary for the best possible commercial terms and monetary recovery in accordance with the terms and conditions of the authority's procurement policy. So, none of these items we anticipate would be exceeding $5,000.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. All in favor by roll call.
Jeffrey, aye.
Jones, aye.
Malcolm, aye.
And Randy, aye. That's passed.
I would just like to point out that as a reminder, employees and their families are prohibited from bidding on these items. State ethics laws. Okay, next item. Award of contract number 09-2022, Woods Hole Ferry Terminal landside reconstruction site work. So we're requesting a vote of the board to authorize the general manager to execute contract number 09-2022, Woods Hole Ferry Terminal landside reconstruction site work to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, Lawrence Lynch Corporation of Falmouth, Mass, for a total cost of $2,985,744. This contract will prepare the Woods Hole Terminal site for the new terminal and utility building. The site elevation needs to be raised approximately 5 feet to improve the flood protection for the site. The scope of the work includes the installation or the moving of the stormwater drainage and underground utility work for potable water, sewage, electrical, and communications. Bid packages were sent out to 28 contractors. We had 3 sealed bids opened on June 14th. The lowest bidder was Lawrence Lynch Corporation of Falmouth, Mass. The Steamship Authority's budget estimate point out was $3 million for this phase of the project. So the staff recommends that the members vote to authorize the general manager to execute contract number 09-2022 with Salt Ferry Terminal reconstruction site work to the lowest eligible and responsible bidder, Lawrence Lynch Corporation of Falmouth, Mass, for a total cost of $2,985,744.
What's the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
Move approval. I move approval.
Motion's been
A
made.
question.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Bob, how much, any idea, the amount of fill that will be brought in? It's just a curiosity question.
Yeah, Bill's coming up. Part of the fill that's coming in is actually fill that we had taken out of the pier previously. Is being stored, over at the pits here. So we'll be using that material because that was tested and was deemed usable for this purpose. So not all of it is going to be new fill. It's going to be returned fill.
Bob, to answer, I don't have a good answer specifically on how much fill it's going to take to raise the site 5 feet. Yeah. It's going to be done in different about 5 or 6 phases, so that we can keep the plant the terminal operational. But I will get back to you guys on it once we get the contract.
It isn't necessary, Bill, for me. How much of a grade will be established, by the fill? In other words, it's obviously going to be a grade down towards the water.
Yeah, so we're raising the grade from the water's edge to about 10.5 feet where the terminal will be located. And then it slopes downward through the Caudry Bridge to reach, the original terminal, the original grade rather at the bridge. And it's hard to estimate the amount of fill because, it's different. We're going to use some, as Bob said, we're going to use some of the old material that we're storing, but top elevations we're paving. We have to use a better construction grade fill for the pavement, but I don't have those estimates yet.
One other question here is, will you be trying to capture as much runoff before it goes in the water, or will it just be running down, into the water?
No, everything's being captured through the stormwater system, and it's going through an oil water separator and then out through the outlets that we've established along the pier, along the sheet pile bulkhead. So I believe there's 4 outlets for the total site.
Again, will everything be captivated without going, into the waters? Or if it
Everything's captured into this. There's no surface runoff into the water, directly into the water. Everything's captured through the stormwater system and processed through an oil water separator and then out into the ocean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Malkin. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. All in favor?
Jeffrey, aye.
Jones, aye.
Malcolm, aye.
And Randy, aye. That is passed.
Okay. One more procurement item. Want to request a vote of the board to authorize the general manager to execute column change order number 67 for contract number 09B-2012 with Salt Ferry Terminal Design with BIA Studio for a fixed amount of $371,565 to cover the construction administration phase services, including the inspection and testing services of Phase 5 for the landside enabling during 2022. So for background, in section 8.3 of the contract, the parties acknowledged there was no reasonable basis on which to establish BIA Studios fees for its construction administration phases during the reconstruction of the terminal after Phase 1 of the project. In addition, under section 7 of the contract, BIA Studio is entitled for reimbursement for the cost of retaining testing laboratories and field inspectors, which is required under section 3.15. That ensure that the quality of the pile driving and other construction, structural construction of the site. Accordingly, the parties had reviewed and negotiated and agreed to the estimated amounts of BIA Studios construction administration phases for each year since December of 2017. So this change order seeks the approval for BIA Studios annual construction administration services estimated for the 2022 landside enabling construction phase. It also includes the engineering subcontractors' estimates, as well as testing and field inspectors. The fee is an estimate. It is invoiced on an hourly basis. Last year, as a point of reference, last year's construction administration was not completely used, and we expect a credit of nearly $100,000 from last year's construction change order. So the staff is recommending that the members authorize the general manager to execute change order number 67 for contract number 09B 2012, which Hope Ferry Terminal Design with BIA Studios for a total fixed cost of $371,565 to cover its annual construction administration phase services, including inspection and testing services for the 2022 landside enabling construction phase.
Is there a motion from the board?
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on this or any discussion at all? Hearing none, all in favor by roll call?
Jeffrey, aye.
Jones, aye.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, aye.
All right. So that takes care of procurement. Old and new, I do have a couple things. First, we received a request from the Martha's Vineyard Police Chiefs Association for an informational bulletin. So we're requesting that the members approve the posting of the informational bulletin from the Martha's Vineyard Police Chief at the Woods Hole Terminal and on the authority's vessels. We received a request from Chief Bruce McNamee of the Yankton Police Department as a representative of the Island Police Chiefs Association. Again, they would like to post this information at the Woods Hole Terminal aboard the vessels that are traveling on the Vineyard route. The bulletin welcomes visitors to the island, but provides some safety advisories for those not familiar with the local rules and ordinances. We've attached a copy of a draft of what that would look like. So postings would be limited to bulletins that would be 1 foot by 2 feet in size. And the staff is recommending that the members vote to authorize the posting of this bulletin to inform passengers on how they can more safely enjoy their time while vacationing on the island. The authority will post a space posted when space is available at the terminal and in the vessels. And in accordance with the terminal conduct policy, this is something that the terminal managers could have addressed, but it doesn't address posting on the vessels. So that's why we felt it was necessary to bring it to the board for approval.
Do we have a motion from the board?
I'll move.
Is there a second? We have 2
I'll
seconds.
second with a question. Yeah, with
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Go for it.
How many signs will that be? I mean, will it be posted around various areas of the terminals and the boats, or just at a strategic location, or what does that
Yeah.
entail?
So during the summertime, we have 5 vessels operating on that route. So we'll find a spot in one of the bulletin boards on the vessels to do. I think at the terminal, we're probably just posted on the inside of the terminal. So that way as people are coming in and out for the ticket offices. We run into it in Todd Falvey's here. If, he may have some more information, but we also run into an issue of too many signs everywhere that it kind of clouds up, you know.
If we could place them in conspicuous places and where passengers would be able to easily read them. That's what chiefs were hoping for.
Mr. Malcolm.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Falvey. Just so that you know, the 6 Island Police Chiefs, as a group, got together with Chief McNamee of Edgartown. They also contacted me and spoke extensively with Todd Falvey on this. We're trying to make sure that people coming to the vineyard realize that they're not driving on the streets of Manhattan or Westchester or wherever, or DC, wherever they're coming from, and that they the roads are narrower, traffic is slower, there's sand on the sides of the roads, and all the things that we on the island deal with, and and our Cape communities deal with as well, to try and make it safer as people face the usual summer congestion. Thank you.
Do we have a motion on this?
Yes, we do. In a second.
Oh, we do. Okay, sorry. Fell asleep for a second. So we'll take a roll call vote. All in favor?
Jeffrey, aye.
Jones, aye.
Malkin, aye.
Randy, aye. That's approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. I'll ask Terrence and Janice to come up on the next item if you can. Yeah, yes, I know.
Good morning, everyone.
You're doing it. You're up.
I'm up. So based on some feedback that we've had over the last year during the performance evaluation process for Bob Davis, we've moved away from, or we're considering moving away from the paper forms, and I've created a Google Doc with all 14 pages consolidated into one. Back on June 6th, I had sent an email to all of the board members and Port Council Steamship Authority addresses. And contained within that email is the link to the Google Doc. In addition to that, attached to that is the memo that really outlines the process. So moving forward in July, both at the board meeting and Port Council, each member will provide their feedback independently to Bob. So if I could ask that you have all of that information prepared for next week or next month's meeting, that would be great.
Mr. Jones.
Yes. June 6th, again, I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I don't, remember getting an email from you. It was sporadic out there. Could you resend me that email?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. And also last week, I did send out an email to your personal email addresses as well. But Mr. Jones, I'd be happy to resend that to you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Mr. Jeffrey.
I do have a comment about the process and more for next year. I know we have the process that was approved by the board in discussions last year, and it's only fair to adhere to that because that's what Mr. Davis expects, and that's what we communicated to him. But I do think moving forward, when we talk about the process and evaluative factors for the upcoming year, one, I would personally like to be able to have the Port Council members' input to the board and their evaluations and not have them be blind to us beforehand, because their job and responsibility under the Enabling Act is to advise the board. And I'm without their advice as I go about my own evaluations. And I guess the second is more perhaps for Janice as we move forward. I would like to see if we could see how other general managers of other steamship authorities are evaluated. If there's a way to get like the Washington State Ferry system, perhaps their performance metrics or the Maine State Ferry. And looking at, and this is my first go around with the evaluative factors, and I know they've changed over time, but it seems that most of the metrics that we're looking at in this year's evaluation under the 11 factors are qualitative, and there's very little quantitative measures of performance, especially in terms of budget and operating cost. And I would think I would like to see the board adopt that, some more quantitative metrics in next year's evaluative factors, the general manager.
Thank you.
So Peter, on your first comment about the Port Council input, so the Port Council will be going through their review in their session, which I think we're moving to July 12th. And then you can take that information from their input at that point in time. Those will become public records and we can provide those to you. So then you can then incorporate them as you see fit into your review.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Malcolm?
Neither question nor comment, but Janice, while I wasn't in the middle of the Atlantic, the cyber ninjas apparently ate your email to me with the evaluation. So if you could send it along.
I'll get that off to you. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. I had it.
The dog.
You have to unmark. She's not spam, Jim. So you got
Right, exactly. Don't block me.
Mr. Davis?
If I just may add a couple items. One, Mr. Jeffrey, previously we had done a survey of other public ferry operators on what what process they go through, if any. My memory is that by and large, there is no public process that they go through, but we can go back and revisit that. In addition, I point out that I am preparing a review of each of the goals that was established, and we're sending that off to the Port Council and the board. So that way you get a clearer understanding as to what each goal was and the status of getting those, where they stand.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything that was not reasonably anticipated. I don't know if the chair had anything that she submitted or not.
No, she had not.
Then we'll go to public comment.
Was it *9 or raise your hand?
Yeah, if there's any comments from the public, press *9 on your phone or raise your hand icon. It looks like Mr. Brennan has a comment.
Just a question going back to the non-union personnel. Can you just clarify the 2.2% and the 3.3% for me, please? How that works?
Yeah, so each job in the classification in the non-union group is assigned a grade in the salary structure. And the 2.2% is the recommendation from Willis Towers Watson that range be adjusted by 2.2% to begin with. And then the 3.3% is that based on the individual's performance evaluation, the overall group would come in at no more than the 3.3%, and that the individuals within that group, their performance evaluation and based on where they're at within their salary range determines what the percentage is that would be, that would add to their compensation. Really, it's, there's a couple pieces that fit together here, so, but the 2.2 is just to move the entire range of each grade up by 2.2%. So.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
That appears to be it.
In that case, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss and approve the minutes of the authority's meeting in executive session on May 26, 2022, to review the authority's strategy with respect to collective bargaining negotiations and contract negotiations with non-union employees, because a public discussion of these matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's negotiating and bargaining positions. These matters include anticipated and ongoing negotiations with Teamsters Union Local 59, discussion with respect to a tentative collective bargaining agreement with Service Employees International Union Local 888, CTW.CLC, SEIU Local 888, governing the terms and conditions of employment for the authority's Reservation and Customer Relations Department employees. Discussion with respect to a tentative collective bargaining agreement with Marine Engineers Beneficial Association District Number 1, PCD, MEBA, governing the terms and conditions of employment for the authority's chief engineers. Also, the authority's employment contract with its general manager, Robert B. Davis. The public disclosure of any more information with respect to these matters would compromise the purposes for which the executive session is being called. After the conclusion of the executive session, we will reconvene in public. Again, may I have a motion?
Malkin,
Mr. Malkin. And seconded by Mr. Jeffrey. All in favor, by roll call.
Jeffrey, I.
John's eye.
Malkin, aye.
Randy, aye. We are now into executive session.
Okay. I believe that Sean has sent out another Zoom invite. So we'll be leaving this room and going upstairs to a conference room. So that way Steve doesn't have to shut everything down, and we'll keep this Zoom going. But if the board members can to exit this Zoom.
So like 10 minutes, what do you think?
Yeah, give us 10 minutes to fire up the laptop.
Okay, so 11:28. Thank you.
Are we ready?
Give us a minute, Rob. And you'll need to do the recording announcement again. Remote.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah,
Not at the moment. I got a tickle in my throat.
I mean, after 2 years, can't we just say ditto?
Yeah, ditto.
Okay, and whenever you're ready. Steve, you ready?
Is it Steve Beatty or Batty?
Hey.
Okay.
This is Steve's last meeting too, by the way.
Is it really? Oh, I'll be sure and butcher your name then.
Ready.
Are we ready? We're ready? Okay, welcome back into public session. I'd like to inform everyone that Steve Beatty of All Media Productions is making a video and audio recording of today's meeting in public session for Martha's Vineyard Community Television, also known as MVTV. I would also like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communication director, is also making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. Is there anybody else in the audience who is making an audio recording of today's meeting? If so, press *9 on your keypad or the raise your hand icon. I see one person, Louisa Huffstetter.
From the Vineyard Gazette.
Anybody else making a recording?
No, sir.
Pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in line with social distancing guidelines followed during the COVID-19 pandemic, board members are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendances today would be unreasonably difficult. All board members are participating in the meeting by Zoom, by the Zoom video conferencing app, and all members will be clearly audible to each other. And as a result of the members' remote participation in this meeting today, any and all votes taken by the members today shall be by roll call vote. We are actually only in public session to adjourn our public session. So if we have a motion to that effect, I'd be happy to entertain it.
So
Mr.
moved.
Malkin, is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. All in favor by roll call to adjourn.
Jeffrey, aye.
Jones, aye.
Malcolm, I.
Randy, aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a happy 4th.
You too.
Have a fifth on the fourth.